2010, we get a rather distorted picture of what's going on. We want to look beyond that to see what's happening in the longer term. And so our starting point for these analyses is a very important report that came out in September last year from the Energy Research Institute in Beijing. This is a very important report, and yet it's still available only in Chinese. So the Chinese speakers amongst you will have access to this report, but nobody else has at this point. But I have access to it because my collaborator is Chinese, Dr. Hao Tan. So we have access to this report. And this chart is taken from this report. And you can see, this chart shows a convex increasing energy production system in China, driven largely by coal. That's the big coal one, and then oil and gas. But the interesting thing is that from this perspective, this, which is the most important energy research institute in China, they see China's energy makeup, the grand energy machine of China, by mid-century as being 1/3 driven by coal, 1/3 by oil and gas, and fully 1/3 coming from what they call new renewables and hydro and nuclear. So China, depending on the report, tends to group all of these together. The new renewables, like wind and solar, the nuclear, and the new renewable and hydro, which is the largest renewable source in China. So we asked, well, what if we look more directly at these new renewables and seek to develop a perspective on them where we can actually see what is driving the uptake of these renewables. So we start then with China's development of renewable and low-carbon energy systems. And that's the focus of the paper that we've developed and of my talk this afternoon. I want to repeat that this is simply one aspect of the China phenomenon. The other aspect is its huge appetite for coal and burning coal and sending out carbon emissions into the atmosphere. That's one side of China. This is the other side, its development of low-carbon energy systems, where it's either the world leader or rapidly approaching world leadership already in a range of renewable energy industries. Hydropower, undisputed world leader. Wind power, this year investing more and building more wind power than any other country, coming from behind Germany and the United States to take leadership in terms of installed capacity this year. Solar photovoltaic, a long way in front. Solar thermal, way in front. Bioenergy, and in nuclear. Almost all of the nuclear power stations being built today are being built in China. Some in Japan, some in Korea, but mostly in China. So, a lot of studies have been published recently. I've been reading these, particularly this one from the UN Development Programme, the Energy Research Institute, the Chinese one, the World Resources Institute. So a lot of organisations, non-government organisations, research institutes are cottoning on to the fact that there is an amazing transformation going on in China right now. And so there's a lot of scholarly activity and policy-oriented activity. But it's not yet driven by a sense of the dynamic, what is actually driving these transformations. So that's what we're going to do, myself and Hao Tan. And I just want to show you, before I get onto that,